Hello. I'd like to thank you all for coming here today to join us in celebrating the life of Ron Bagby. You may have known him as a classmate, a co-worker or boss, a deacon or elder at your church, an uncle, grandfather, or maybe even a great-grandfather. I not only knew him as my dad, but also as my Y Indian Guides chief, my Cub Scout troop leader, and my soccer, track, and baseball coach. But more than anything, I knew him as the man who regularly woke me up at 7:30 on Saturday mornings and made me go mow the lawn. I mean, really. He knew I stayed up late. Just do it before it gets too hot. It's just so stupid.
Cut.
Ronnie Bagby came into this world on April 9th, 1941, and was a happy, very well-fed little boy. So well fed, in fact, that he never left the house without a pocket full of Cheerios, pictured here, which he called Little Donuts. Ronnie had an idyllic childhood in Slayton, Texas with his big sister Jan, parents Johnny and Lula, and a slew of doting aunts, uncles, and friends. He inherited his great sense of humor from his mother, and the two would get into a lot of good-hearted mischief together. Like the times when Lula would goad Ronnie into whistling at that pretty little ward girl who lived a couple of blocks away as she would walk by their house. Never one to walk away from a dare, Ronnie would whistle and then immediately hide. Lula would laugh and that pretty little ward girl would go on her way, never quite sure of what to make of the whole thing. Now you see, this is a literary device called foreshadowing. I used it because I'm a writer. Well, not just a writer. My mom says I'm a very gifted writer.
Cut! This isn't about you.
You're just jealous. Dad spent his teen years playing football, hunting, fishing, rodeoing, and most of all spending time out on the C-Bar Ranch with his best friends. He was truly in his element working as a ranch hand on the C-Bar and cutting up with his buddies around Slayton. Ever his mama's son, he was always quick to keep his friends laughing and have a good time. And all the girls wanted to dance with him over at Tigertown. A prolonged illness forced Ronnie to stay home during what would have been his senior year of high school. And it was during this time that he was asked to give rides home from school to a family friend's freshman daughter. Always the gentleman, Ronnie of course obliged. When he got to school and the girl got into his car, he immediately recognized her. It was that pretty little ward girl who he used to whistle at. I guess those rides worked out okay, because Nita Ward would spend the next 60 years being Ronnie's girl. They were married on August 18th, 1962, and she's right over there. Hi, Mom. Dad only had two dreams back then: to be married to my mom and to be a cowboy on a range. With dream number one achieved, the newly married Red Raider buckled down and made the best grades of his collegiate career at Texas Tech. Majoring in ranch management and horticulture, he thought he had everything figured out. But like John Lennon once said, life is what happens while you're busy making other plans. And a little less than a year into their marriage, Nita became pregnant. When Ronnie found out he was going to be a father, he walked across the street and got a job with the Santa Fe Railway, where his father had spent his entire career. He then drove over to Texas Tech and dropped out. And from that day forward, his only dream was to provide the best life he could for his family. My sister Stacy was born on July 22nd, 1963, and she's right over there. Hey, Stacy. 5.5 years later, I came along. And I'm right over there. Hey, me. And with that, the Bagby family was complete. Dad always spent time playing with me and Stacy. He could get a baseball game going in the blink of an eye. He'd tell me to grab my bat and glove and would walk across the street to the huge vacant lots where homes hadn't been built yet in our neighborhood. We'd start playing within about 5 minutes of that. My next door neighbor Steve would come running over with his glove in hand, and inside of about 10 more minutes, about a dozen kids of all ages were running over to do the same thing. Then Dad would organize the teams and be all-time pitcher. Growing up in the Bagby house, you regularly heard phrases and words like stick to the fundamentals, lollygag, cattywampus, and I tell you what, Dad was never a yes man. He never took the easy way out, and his lawn was always perfect. Mainly because he made me get up at 7:30 on a Saturday to mow it. I just can't anymore. Man! Let's just move on. Character wasn't just important to Ron Bagby. It was everything. I remember when he taught me how to defend myself, how to make a fist, throw a punch, take a punch, stuff like that. He told me there would be times when I would have to go into a conflict, be it a physical one or not, knowing that I would probably lose, but I'd still have to do it because it was the right thing to do. I've had to do that a few times in my life, and it completely sucked. But I'll always be thankful for learning that lesson and proud that I did it. Dad was a good teacher, and he expected a lot from me as his student. When he taught me to shoot, he'd set up cans to shoot the same way a lot of people do. But hitting a Pepsi can with a pellet gun at 50 feet wasn't the goal. Ron Bagby wasn't satisfied until you could hit the inside of the P or dot the I in the Pepsi can from that same distance. When he taught me how to fish, he took me in the backyard with a rod and reel. Again, it wasn't about making a successful cast to the back corner of the yard. Instead, he put a coffee can over in that back corner, and he needed to hit it 10 times in a row. Then you were ready to go fishing with Ronnie Bagby. Dad was also a really good driving instructor. He taught me how to drive one morning after pheasant hunting on some farmlands around Hereford, Texas. He showed me the basic mechanics of driving his old pickup. The pressure to use on the pedals, adjusting your mirrors, always use your blinker, stuff like that. He then asked if I wanted to drive a little bit. When I did okay at it, he asked me if I wanted to follow his directions down these dirt farm roads and take us to the highway. Nervous and excited, I followed his instructions and I got us safely back to Highway 60 and pointed straight towards Amarillo. When we got home, I proudly told Mama what I had done. Inexplicably, she didn't seem to be proud or excited. For some odd reason, Mom was troubled by the fact that my father had let her 8-year-old son drive a truck. He tried to ease her concerns by telling her that I did really well. I just had to stand up in the floorboard instead of sit, because that would have been silly for an 8-year-old to do. Overall, Mom was nonplussed. But I really pulled a lot of cool points with my second grade classmates when I told that story to them. Thanks for that one, Dad. Of course, as I grew as a person, I developed interests and passions of my own. Eventually, I uttered the words that no parents ever want to hear. I want a drum set. With that in mind, my father and I definitely had our differences. How does a grounded, pragmatic man like my father have a head-in-the-clouds punk rock type son who writes song lyrics instead of doing his homework every night? God only knows. Well, God and Dad, by now, he's had to have asked. Growing up, I wanted drum lessons. Dad wanted to send me to rodeo clown bullfighting school. I wanted to immerse myself in music. Dad wanted me to improve my golf game because some of the best deals are made on the golf course. And he wasn't wrong. It was just wrong for me. But for all the times we butted heads and disagreed over the years, those aren't the times that I remember the most. What I remember is that when I was 8 and had a severe head injury that required brain surgery and spending weeks in the hospital, it was my father who I saw every night, all night long, in a chair beside my bed. He would then turn around and put in a full day of work in Santa Fe. He never complained about it, and he never missed a night. And years later, as an adult, when I was diagnosed with major depression, likely due to the long-term side effects of that same head injury, when I was at my lowest, suicidal, completely out of hope, barely able to get out of bed, let alone just get over it, it was my father who didn't judge me, who went to the bookstore and bought a stack of books on understanding and helping with depression. It was him who got me in touch with Texas MHMR to get the proper treatment plan. He never made me feel weak or lazy or less than him. He only made me feel safe and at home. I'll never forget that. So again, the question, how does a down-to-earth, pragmatic kind of guy ever bond with a son who devoted his entire life to being a touring drummer? Well, it turns out that part was simple, because I've applied every lesson my dad ever taught me to my drumming and musicianship. Dotting that I on the Pepsi can with a pellet rifle became playing a groove while maintaining a solid tempo without a metronome. Casting a lure into a coffee can across the yard smoothly became how to play a smooth Bakersfield shuffle without a hitch. I've become the musician who believes that arriving 5 minutes early is actually being on time. I constantly practice my fundamentals so that my playing doesn't get all cattywampus at a gig. If you knew Ronnie Bagby, you knew that you could count on Ronnie Bagby. I doubt you can think of a time when he's ever let you down. As his son, my daily goal is to live up to his example as a person on which those around me can trust and rely. In my life, it's not about being the most naturally gifted drummer. It's mainly about being the one who always does their homework, shows up on time, and listens to those around you. I guess, really, I'm just trying to be the Ron Bagby of drummers. And over the past 10 years or so, my dad and I developed a very strong relationship that overcame any past frictions. We understood each other, and I didn't take our relationship for granted, and neither did he. We didn't leave a single word unsaid between us. It means the world to me that a couple of years ago, Ronnie placed a photo of me that was taken backstage at the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville on his mantle. The fact that it's from the Ryman isn't important. It's the fact that he respected my craft and was proud of his son. By the way, I had my hat in this photo made with cutter bumps to honor him and his days at the C-Bar Ranch, riding cutting horses and living his dream as I was living mine. Only a true, real cowboy will understand that reference, and that's why I did it. In the end, I can say the greatest gift my father gave to me was closure. I guess Dad knew far before the rest of us that his time with us was coming to an end. Every time I saw him, he would give me something that was special to him. A watch, an old knife, his truck. Seriously, his truck. At every family gathering, every trip to Austin, even every trip to the barber became special. We're all here today because we love, respected, and miss him. But try as I might, I just can't be sad. I don't see this as losing my dad. Rather, I see it as that I'm blessed and lucky to have had him as my father. No matter who you are or how well you try and prepare for it, the universal price for love is loss. It could be through heartbreak, time or distance, or death. But at some point we all have to pay. The only way to avoid loss is not to have loved at all. And I would gladly pay that price over and over again for the life of love that Ronnie Bagby showed me, my wife, and my daughter. I'll spend the rest of my days trying to live by his example. But I'm still not going to get up at 7:30 in the morning to mow the lawn. I'll close by telling him again the final words that I spoke to him on the day he passed. You did all the good, Dad. I am so, so proud of you. You go on home. I'm glad you're home, Ronnie. God bless you.